Thank you very much. Thank you, Patricia, for allowing me the floor. Thank you, Abe. I can say that Victoria, you've done a wonderful presentation, and it's really amazing and probably difficult to speak after your very peaceful presentation and the nature in which you presented it to us. Thank you a lot. Now, look, I want to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Darga people, the traditional custodians of the land we live on today. I would like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and emerging. So thank you very much, everyone. I really love the theme of this conference, Raising Peace, which is actually very important for every one of us. And where we come from, Great Lakes regions of Africa, as Patricia said, we are from the Great Lakes Agency for Peace and Development, and our name comes from that part and from that region of Africa, in the central of Africa. And at the beginning of 2012, people from different communities here in Australia, the communities of the Central African countries, got together with just a single purpose of trying to build peace. That part of the region has been in conflicts, either pre-colonization, kingdoms and chiefdoms conflicts, the magnitude of which is not well known. During colonization, there was a lot of such big conflicts, especially when slave trade was happening in Africa. And that either hasn't been a peace period during those periods, during those times of colonization. And a country like Congo, for example, at one point in time was a property of the king of the region. And by then, Congolese had lots of killings and massacres, and it was never peaceful. Was it peaceful post-colonization? Not at all. Even up to today, those countries are still raging in conflicts, in wars, crossing of the borders on each other. And one asks the question whether today the world is more peaceful or more raging in conflicts than it used to be, even those periods, those eras of the 17th and 16th century, and long time ago. I guess people need to compare these periods of when the world probably was at peace than it is today, or whether today is the best, whether we have a lot of slates. But if I go to the countries of where we come from, actually, I can say that even today, those areas are not at peace. There is ongoing conflicts and wars, and you'd wish that the world would be as peaceful as Victoria was mentioning about it. And therefore, after 2012, when we started the organization, the purpose was to try and bridge those gaps between communities to ensure that the conflicts that have characterized us back home, we would leave them behind. I think Abe and Patricia can be our witness, because we were together when we started the workshops of reconnecting communities for peace. And it was really a very wonderful initiative. All we wanted was to tell our communities that despite of having been in conflict areas in our countries and having cross-border conflicts between countries and speeding over from one country to the other, and resentments of one community against the other, that there is too much that bounds us than just what you think or what you've read back in the past. Because you would see someone turning up and saying, hey, you are my enemy, and yet that was the first time to see you. What would that depict? How would I become your enemy when you've just seen me for the first time? That's how much conflict is also transformative, in a way that you look at someone and think that they're just my enemies by the virtue of where they come from, yet those are people at peace. And therefore, in that reconnecting community sessions, the very thing that we did, which was simple, that I really liked, was to have that primary introduction of how I was born as an individual. Because I guess, in my view, peace starts in everyone's heart. How I was born as an individual, how I grew up, the circumstances under which I grew up, the challenges I came across, the conflicts, the wars, those that did hurt me. Can I tell you that in a group of around 20 people that were around the table, everyone who presented their history, their friend or their neighbor who was sitting next to them, they cried. And that cry showed that while I think that my story was the best, my story was the horriblest, and therefore I have to aggress my neighbor. Rather my neighbor has even the horrible story than mine. So that did bring us into a harmony moment to think about others in a way that conflict is not, the absence of peace in where I lived, in where I grew up, does not necessarily mean that one has to be against their neighbor, but without even understanding that even their neighbor, they have had even traumatic moments of life. So I can say that since the conclusion of our workshops was an event that we organized in the New South Wales Parliament House. It was a hugely attended event, and very great words, great people who participated. It was an amazing moment. And I can say that in our different communities, things have changed because despite of those workshops, we also identified that peace is not a standalone substance, that you also need to accompany it with other support services in life. Economic support, helping someone to settle well and resolve their day-to-day challenges so that they can feel like everyone else. You actually want to bring the matching of that person who has suffered from conflicts to a level where them and their neighbors, they have a similar matching of life in terms of how getting a job is, earning an income, being a decent person. Sometimes the economic challenges take us that far into raging a conflict against our neighbors. So that's where now our organization stands. We stand at a point where we've developed programs that have helped those communities so that then we furnish the peace we teach by actions of support, actions of enjoying others and coming together. And we've had really numerous other functions like Harmony Day that we used to do every year, sports activities. We don't see those signs that we were seeing back then in 2012, 2014. They have based a list or reduced to a wonderful magnitude, but new people keep coming and you have to keep writing this torch of peace through our communities. So thank you, everyone. My question remains, how best do we really or how do we see that? Is the world today at peace? The same question I posed when we were concluding our workshops in the parliament. Is the world a better or a peaceful place today than it used to be maybe 400 years or 500 years? What do we do to do that? And in the end, I very much love the song of Michael Jackson, which is called Heal the World and make it a better place for you and for me. I would love to pray that if I had time, because I have it with me. But I think that's all to Abe and Patricia so that I can let others also speak. But if you allow me the space, I'll pray it for you because I love it. It's amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. And thank you, Victoria, for this wonderful presentation. And I can echo your sentiment. Darkness only can be defeated with light. So let us do more lighting around us and defeat darkness. My presentation this morning is going to be about my work, Patricia and myself work with the GLAPD, and to really explain our project that we have done together in over 9 months with the leaders, community leaders of the Congo, Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi. It was, I always say that people, when we are living in a conflict, sometimes we take it with us everywhere we go, and we cannot escape it. It's an experience we lived. It's something that we experienced and lived and witnessed. When we lose our dearest friends and family members and all of that, we cannot just put behind us and walk away. It's not easy. But what we can do, we have a choice to live in that era of conflict, or light the candle to show us the way forward. Conflict is a dark place, and we should not be living in it. For sure, we need to remember it. We need to learn lessons from it, but we should not live in it. There is pain there, there's hurt, absolutely. But what we are trying to do is turn negative into a positive. And this is what the spirit of Reconnecting Communities project is about, really remembering the past and live the future. It's about us escaping the past, leaving it behind us, and reconnecting with the people around us who've been, as well as being victims to that conflict as much as we are, the people who lived it. So really the whole issue of the Connecting Projects, Reconnecting Communities project, is really about reflect on what things we have learned and what things we want to give to our future generation. Are we going to tell them about the enemies that they are still there? Or are we going to tell them about the enemies who were there and now they are friends? It's really all about that. It's about living and be mindful of what we give to the new generation. Most of our refugees who escaped international conflict zones come here to really start a new beginning. And start a new beginning, that means they're going to come across some people who have been in conflict with. How we then get them to learn how to live with those people who hurt us, or we believe they hurt us. So Reconnecting Communities is about empowering and giving voice and space to encourage difficult conversations at home, in the streets, and within the community. This way, we reconnect with ourselves first, with our own pain and hurt, as much as we connect with the people who we believe have hurt us as well. It is about introducing the skills of being a person, a human, and to connect with our own humanity, because our humanity will connect us with the humanity of the others. Conflict is unavoidable and present in our daily life. There's no escape from conflict. We grow up into fear and avoid conflict. We are horrified when we come face to face with conflict. Some of us are better equipped in dealing with it than others. But we know life skills would teach us how to manage conflict. And it's up to us to open our minds and hearts in how we deal with those situations and make it a better place for us to live. We all have life packages we take with us. It depends on us if we want to carry that package and put it over our shoulders and be burdened with it, or just put it on the coffee table and just look at it and be enlightened by what happened to us. We are exposed to stories. We hear parents talking about it. Some of them uplifting and some of them are depressing and create uneasiness. But we also are exposed to physical conflicts, mass killing, and all of genocides. It is up to us how much we take from it and how many lessons we learn from it. This is what the spirit of the reconnecting communities is, how to live with the memory, hurtful, painful memory, but at the same time, we create a better place for us all. This is really it's all about. I'll hand over to Patricia to talk about how we went around doing this project with the Great Lakes communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Abe. As Abe mentioned, the Reconnecting Communities project was very much looking to creating a safe and supportive environment for communities to meet and discuss their concerns and grievances in the hope of reaching a better understanding. So we wanted to create and build social cohesion and resilience with the communities that we were involved with. And this happened in 2015. Abe and I, at that time, were teaching at the Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies, Sydney University. And we were approached by Emmanuel, who, as speaking earlier, discussed the issues about the conflicts and tensions that exist with newly arrived refugee communities in Australia. And in particular, representing the Great Lakes of Africa region, which were the countries of Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. Abe and I looked at how we could be in a position to put together a program of creating a space for representatives from each of the 4 community groups from the Great Lakes region to be able to have the opportunity to discuss the issues that were affecting them, whether it's within their families, within their friends and the community, and also together with each other from the different communities. And by doing that, what we did is we started a plan to be able first to meet with the leaders of the 4 different community groups individually at the beginning. And using this process, we worked on methodologies using the importance of storytelling, the importance of dialogue, the importance of conflict analysis tools to be able to inform us of how we can then be able to create a plan of various meetings or workshops, as we then called it, to be able to bring together members of the different communities from Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and DRC. At the Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies, we were able to have the facilities at the center to meet with the different leaders. And during that process, we were able to work out ways in which how we can reach out to different members of the community, to select leaders from each of the groups and to see how they would be interested to participate in a workshop to bring them together. And we did this over a period of about 3 months, where we met regularly with the individual leaders. And this was a first stage process of this Reconnecting Communities, because the actual project involved 2 stages. The first stage was meeting with the leaders within their own communities first, and then we progressed to meeting the leaders of each of the communities together, in bringing them together in joint sessions. And by doing that, we were then being able to have the opportunity to have each of the community representatives to be able to speak, to be able to tell their story, their personal story, and to have the opportunity to share that with others. It was a very highly effective way of being able to see how communities already have the power to be able to build peace within themselves. And in many ways, the opportunity that we had was to be able to listen to their stories, to be able to have the stories that they were explaining about their situations, to build bridges through the sometimes what we found were difficult conversations during the workshops and during the meetings with the different communities. Some of the topics that we dealt with were often very difficult topics. Topics, for example, such as identifying the nature of the personal conflicts and tensions individual community members were having, to conflicts that was to issues that were relating to family issues, for example, intergenerational issues between parent and children. We also had stories that were stories about very sometimes unpleasant and traumatic memories of the past, which were brought back. And in many ways, having to look at how we need to recognize that in this world, there is no one narrative. There are multiple narratives, and we need to be able to listen and respect the multiple narratives of an issue, of a conflict. We also need to recognize that often there are alternative facts that come out in conversations when we are dealing with issues such as conflict. And also, of course, the issue of difficult conversations. What we found in building these workshops together with the communities and bringing them together is that there was a strong building up of relationships, of partnerships, and a lot more collaboration between the groups. We were also learning about the need to respect the diversity of our communities, which was so rich. And I personally learned so much about the different cultural, linguistic, religious diversity that existed in the Great Lakes of Africa community. So rich. And we were able to together share in these workshops, not only the conversations and discussions that brought us together, but also we were able to learn about the importance of food, the importance of dance, music, and the cultural traditions of each of the groups. So I'll just move on now to Abe.
Thank you, Patricia. Okay. I got to talk about what was the guiding principles and values that Reconnecting Communities project entailed. It is about humanizing the other. It's about thinking of the other people who we thought or were enemies, about a human being. and we are all share this humanity with each other. By putting a human face to an enemy, I want to meet. And this was the guiding principle that we really worked with. I recall Ron Casey talk about his father during Second World War. And they were in Malta, and there were some German soldiers in the town. And they were going around sort of clearing the place until they came to a house where a German soldier walked out with the white flag and put hands up in surrender. And the colonel at the time asked Ron's father to go and kill that person, that soldier. And he said, but he has a white flag and not armed. The colonel went there, shot the person, the German soldier between the eyes, and came back, and he told him, never look at the enemy in their eyes, because you humanize him. And that's what we need to do ourselves. This is our guiding principle and value. It's about looking at each other's eyes and they humanize the other. The minute we humanize each other, we're no longer enemies. We are human, we connect. And this connection will guide us in building better relationship with each other. It's about listening to each other's story. The story make us a human. And this is really what our guided principles and values is about, humanizing the other, humanizing what we think an enemy. We all victims of a conflict. No conflict will end with one victor and one loser. We all lose because we all lose. Our people, friends, family, we do. And even our humanity is lost in conflict sometimes, but we need to find it back. And this was our guiding principle in running the workshops with the community leaders from the Great Lakes of Africa. It's about reconnecting them with each other, connect them to the values of human rights, non-violence, respect of the other, and our shared humanity is the most important part of the project. These values underpin the decision and activities that we implemented in the project. Everyone has the right to his or her own story. Everyone has the right to be listened to with respect and dignity. Recognition of pain and hurt, past and present, of all of us, victors and losers. There's no such a thing. We're all losers in the conflict. Acknowledge each other's role in the conflict, and no path without labor pain. We need to go through the pain before we find a safe place for us all to meet and talk about these sort of things. So we created a safe and supportive environment for the community leaders to meet and discuss their concerns and grievance and pain and suffering without being judged. We accept them for who they are. That's their story, and they are entitled to it. So building community cohesion and resilience to violent extremism. They escaped conflict to find refuge here in Australia. We don't want the conflict to come with them. The whole issue of the project, the whole principle of the project is how we live with our past and build the future together. How we reconnect each other before the conflict. Conflict does divide communities, divide families even, divide people. Mm-hmm. In Australia, we want them to reconnect back again. And this is really what the whole guiding value and principle of the project is, really how we live with the conflict in the past and build the future together. This is really what motivated us to work with this project. Sorry, Patricia will be talking about the process we went through, how we managed that.
As mentioned earlier, we started in 2015 towards the September of 2015. And what Abe and I had planned is that we hoped to talk to the representatives and the community leaders of the Great Lakes region to say that we would like to all hope that in 1 year's time, and we aimed for International Day of Peace, September 21, 2016, the following year, we would have a message that we could say on this day about what we have been able to create from bringing together the communities of the Great Lakes of Africa region. And the process started with the process starting in 2015, as I said, with regular community groups and meetings coming together, community groups from the Great Lakes region, leaders from each of the communities from Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and DRC, regularly meeting through facilitated meetings that Abe and I conducted over a series of 3 to 6 months. And some of these meetings were held obviously during weekends, because we could not bring all the various community leaders together during working hours. So many of these meetings took place on a Saturday and the weekend, and we had the meetings, many of them at Fairfield, which was a central location for where most of the communities were living. And it was in these places at the Fairfield Community Centre, we had the support of a social worker from Fairfield who helped us with bringing together facilities for us to conduct our facilitated meetings and our workshops. And after these meetings and workshops, we were able to bring together an event to mark International Day of Peace and to celebrate the outcomes of what our meetings and workshops were able to lead to. And we could see that on that day at the New South Wales Parliament, as what Emmanuel mentioned earlier, we were able to celebrate International Day of Peace with over 70 people who came to that event to launch the Peace Building Reconnecting Communities project with the support of the communities there, together with the Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies, University of Sydney. And like to thank very much Dr. Wendy Lambourne for her support in being able to enable us to bring together the communities and for us to have this wonderful opportunity to implement this project. I will show some photographs of this process that we conducted over a series of 9 months, conducting the workshops and bringing the different communities together, and culminating in the International Day of Peace event in 2016. I think this would not have happened without the support of so many other people, organizations, and of course, with the wonderful support that has continued with GLAPD. I think for us, this Reconnecting Communities represents, as Abe gives an example of the way in which we see that peace is about empowering local citizens. And it's about being able to build a culture of peace where we can change perceptions and we can have people have wise choices and also to take positive actions in their lives. Thank you, Abe.
Thank you. Okay. What I'm going to talk about now is the storytelling and the importance of having stories being listened to by everybody. Everyone from a conflict zone come with a story. And the story is very powerful. It is each individual story and it needs to be listened to and acknowledged. It is the individual story and experience that been through. And unless we acknowledge each other's past and history and experience, there's no future. We cannot continue with the future without the story. That's how we started. It's about peace building through storytelling. It is a medium for building peace through questions such as why storytelling. So we talked about it in as part of the workshops. So what does it help? What do we achieve? And in conflict and post-conflict societies, can storytelling make a big difference? We actually validate the people's experience. And unless we validate people's experience, we're not going to move forward. It's an acknowledgement. They have been through a period of time that has been painful. It's been hurtful. And we need to actually listen to it and let them express it in their own way. And this was very helpful in moving forward, because then we acknowledge the past. Acknowledging the past made us move forward much easier and better. In conflict and post-conflict societies, the storytelling make a big difference. And the aim is to present the power of storytelling in peace building by evoking understanding of the other through storytelling. We all have a story, regardless which side of the conflict we sit in. We all have a story. And we all have been motivated to do whatever we did. That's not actually justifying it, but it is about part of our collective memory of what happened. So the storytelling is to trigger a sense of empathy with each other. Stories have a point. They employ a moral pressure. Stories can be about what should be and what we have learned as well. It's not just a story to be told and buried away. It's a lesson we all need to learn, not from our own story alone, but from each other's story. It is a very powerful tool, and we allow the space for each participant to talk about their story, because it's really, maybe this is the first time they're actually given a platform to talk about it openly, without judgment, without being the finger pointed at them, and without blame of themselves or the other. So it's about a stepping stone for them to leave the past behind with all its painful and look for a better future. I'm not talking about leave the past behind and forget it. We will never forget the past, but we can live with it. How we live with the past and make a better future for all of us. The storytelling was a very powerful tool we employed and used effectively in getting all the communities together, and without pointing the finger of blame on one or the other. And it's been very helpful to everybody who participated in the workshops. And it was a very good stepping stone at the start of the workshop, because then we all know what the stories are and where we want to be. We know where we've been, but we want to know where we're going to, how far we take that with us, and what lessons been learned from those stories. It's an education for us. It's about reconnecting, actually. It is reconnected because we all have a story, and the story is connect with other stories and make that big piece of mosaic that we're going to all share and put together, and we all own it. It's not just one to blame and the other not, as a victim. We're all victims to a conflict. There's no person, regardless what side of the conflict they land in, we all victims. And the victimhood is there. Do we want to stay there, or do we want to heal? And the story is used as a healing for most people who told their stories openly and possibly for the first time, and being listened to for the first time as well. Okay, I'll hand over to Nadine for her comments.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Patricia and Eb, for your wonderful presentation. Actually, it's made me recall all those moments. As one of the participants, of course, the organizer, and as well as the participants in the program, I always actually feel emotional when I remember about that, because there was very strong moments. Excuse me. I really learned a lot, and it's really, I really saw how people were healing, how people were acknowledging that everyone has been a victim, you know, in this journey, especially for people who come from that region. Maybe to start a little bit, to add on what everyone said. Excuse me, actually I should get a tissue. Sorry, second. Sorry. As in the introduction, yes, I'm Nadine Shema, and I'm one of the co-founder of the Great Lakes Agency for Peace and Development. I arrived in Australia in 2011 as an international student, and being a person who really like seeing people happy and peaceful, I was very disappointed when I got in Australia, because I was so excited first to come to this beautiful country, and I was expecting to find people who are here, happy, united, supporting each other. But that wasn't the case, especially for people who came from the Great Lakes region of Africa. I think everyone knows what the region has been characterized for. And it has been like a ongoing conflict since some of us were born in the conflict. Some of us, our parents were born in the conflict. They were victims of those conflicts. But as you grow, you don't really feel that burden unless you come and meet people who also have been through that and see how you live together or you behave one another. So, and that was the main reason for me to co-found this organization with other people with whom we had the same view or the same disappointment at that time in 2012. So we were like, I think we should be happy. We are in a very good country. There's no war. There is food. There is money. Because those were other issues that people were facing there. A part of the conflict, there was also, you know, misery and poverty and hunger and, you know, all those issues. I was expecting maybe to find people happier here, because no one is struggling to, you know, pay the rent or to take the kids to school. But the roots of all that was the past and the story and the background of those conflicts. I'm originally from Rwanda. I think you know what happened in Rwanda, most of you. My parents were refugees, so they were Rwandan, but they were refugees in the Congo. So I grew up in the Congo. I had a happy childhood, but until one day, I was coming from school and there was these kids from the Congo whom I was thinking we are friends, we grew up together, and they were calling us, actually they were calling us my tribe from Rwanda. And they're like, you Tutsi should go back to your country, things like that. I never knew about that. So I remember I went back home crying. So because I was thinking they were abusing me, because our parents never told us about those ethnic stuff, or we didn't even know that our parents were refugees. We were thinking we are Congolese, you know. That thing happened to us, and our parents were like, how are we gonna do this? So of course they started explaining to us what happened, but that really stayed in me for a long time. And I remember in the workshops when they were telling us to tell about our stories and what happened to us, or what hurt us when we were little, growing up. And where everyone was sharing. Everyone was sharing. I remember I shared this story, and everyone was touched. They were like, why is this like this? And I didn't know that stayed in me until then. And when we were starting to, Abe and Patricia taught us about active listening. And the other one, so the other person also will tell the story, and you find out that, oh, you're not the only one who has been the victim, you know? Even some of the people that are thinking, of course, the Congolese, because the Congolese was next to me. He's not the one who was telling me, Tutsi, go to your country. But because he's a Congolese, I felt like these people hated me, hated us. And I grew up with that. That's like 35 years ago, you know? But I grew up with that. Even the Congolese who was in the room, because you had to share the story, they would say, you Rwandans, you are very bad. You are the ones who brought war in our country. And another story happened to me again, just after when I arrived in Australia. I met this Congolese lady in a party. I didn't know her. And then a mutual friend was introducing us to each other. And they told her, okay, oh, she's called Nadine, she's from Rwanda. And the next thing the lady says, like, you are from Rwanda. But you are the one who brought trouble in our country, here in Australia. And that's lady. But thank God now we are friends. It was my first time. She was her first time to see me, and that was my first time to see her. But she had that in her mind, and she knew that Rwandans were bad. You know, even me, I grew up thinking Congolese are bad. They hate us, you know. So these workshops were so useful and so empowering, because I remember every time, as I don't know if it's Eve or Emmanuel who say that, every session ended up by cries and hugs, you know. And of course, that was my story. We had other stories from people from Burundi, from 2 different ethnic groups. And as you know, in Burundi, same as Rwanda, Tutsi, Hutus. And then the Tutsi was telling the story, how they suffered. And when it was the time for the Hutu to talk, the Hutu spoke, and the Tutsi was like, oh, I didn't know you two went through that, you know? It was a really good, I don't know, very empowering, very constructive, very healing. And another thing that we don't have to forget is that people who go through those times of conflict and wars, they also, their mental health is also affected. And that's also, doesn't really help them, you know, heal or recognize that there's an issue that they have to work on. So they also need other support, like mental health support, for them to, you know, to again become, you know, I would say normal, to think logically and objectively without, you know, that issue of mental health also affecting their decision to know what to do and how to go about those other issues that they have. So this program, I really thank Abe and Patricia. You really helped us. And as Emmanuel said, after that session, we've seen our communities growing, getting united, supporting each other. I remember at that time, we didn't have like formal community structures like we had, of course, Rwandan, Burundian, Congolese, Ugandans, but we're not like organized in a structure where we have like a proper leadership, where we have leaders who will step out to help and support others. I remember after that, that's when all the communities started getting organized and starting organizing activities together. As Emmanuel said, we also started that event for Harmony get together, where all those countries would come together we always celebrated it around Harmony Day, and we come together. Every country will go and prepare for the traditional dances, traditional food, and we'll come with, you know, craftings, and we'll have people talking and speaking inspirationally. So it's created as well that, and when we go to those kind of events, everyone forgets the differences, because it's now all about the culture, the identity, the, you know, the food. So showcasing everyone's, I would say that's our strength, or our power, or what we have to, which is good. You know, I would say African, we have very, very strong cultures, and when it comes to that, we put aside all those stuff. And of course, we also had the other event, which is the sport gala, and we've seen that for many years from then, growing bigger and bigger. And I don't know, it's just like a miracle. It's just like a magic, because you see people happier. You see people like not also, you know, feeling, you know, hating each other, those resentments. And we started doing other projects, as Emmanuel said, helping them, supporting them in other spheres of life, such as the social, like socially, economically, and in the integration with the wider Australian community. Because even before, because of that way, the luggage that they have of, you know, they used to isolate themselves. They wouldn't go out there and enjoy what this country gives them. Or yeah, it was really, really affecting them in a very bad way. And then we've seen many going out, you know, finding work, you know, with our regional settlement program, you know, some going in countries like in the regional areas, start working. You'll have people who have been here for 10 years, never worked in their lives in Australia, and now they're there, you know. Now some of them have even settled properly. They have their own houses, they have jobs, they're happier. So I would say peace is a big thing, which when someone has it, it's like it spreads, and it's spread out, and it helps people, you know, live a better life. And I'll say peace starts with ourselves. And another very good skill that I really learned is the listening, the active listening skill. You know, never prejudge anyone. Of course, even in Rwanda, even if there was a genocide there and they say the Hutu, they killed the Tutsi, but the Hutu is here. He's not the one who kills my grandfather or my uncle. He's not the one. Of course, because he has that name, that identity, it shouldn't label him as a killer or as a perpetrator. No, he's not. The person who did that is his own mistake, not for the whole ethnic group. And that has been a mistake that people have made in our countries, to generalize and to stigmatize the other. And yeah, I think I can talk for the whole day when I'm talking about this project and the outcome we got from it. But I'll just thank everyone who played a role. Thanks to Abe and Patricia. I think even for them, it was a great experience, because I don't think they had ever met people who had such, I don't know, traumatic stories and events and lives and background then. And sometimes you tend to think, how did these people survive all this? Especially like Australians who have never been in wars or conflicts. Sometimes it's too big for them to understand that. But people created it created resilience in them, and also new, how do you say it in English? New hopes in them for the future. And also it also like spreads everywhere we go, because even when people listen to our stories, they just get inspired and they just get, oh, it also becomes like a subject of gratefulness for them, like to say, we are grateful because we didn't go through these things. But thank you very much for everyone and for being here, for all the attendees. I'm very sorry. I don't know. I wasn't expecting to, to be this emotional, but yes, let's love each other. Let's build peace. Let's be kind to one another. You don't know how much it can, heal someone. You don't know how much it can also hurt someone if you don't do that. And I think that's the only thing will help. Emmanuel was talking about making the world a better place. But as soon as there are some people who think they are the one who are more worthy than others, or they are the ones who deserve better than others, we'll never achieve that. But if you are kind to each other, help each other, support each other, acknowledge each other's weaknesses, and contribute to supporting each other, as well as celebrating each one's strength and achievement, that's when we will achieve true peace, and especially working with the community. All the initiatives which are done up there, I don't think it will have as better outcome as when you started from the bottom and working and involving the most concerned, who is the grassroots person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nadine. And it's really insightful. I'd like to, and I'm so sorry, we won't have time to answer any questions. I know that.
Oh my gosh, I went over the time. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It was really insightful for you to talk, and really it's to share your story with us. We really appreciate it very much. And I'd like to thank everybody, and I'd like to thank Emmanuel, Nadine, my colleagues as well, Patricia and Victoria, and thank you.